It's time for Agriculture, presented by Turkana Farms in Germantown, New York, a small-scale producer of heritage breed livestock and a wide array of vegetables and berries on just over 39 acres. They also produce a full array of garden vegetables, many of them heirloom varieties raised naturally, as well as an assortment of berries, including raspberries, blackberries, gooseberries, black, red, and white currants, mulberries, and elderberries. And now, here's Mark Scherzer.
If you have any doubt about how much of our heritage derives from our pastoral agrarian past, you might think about how much of our vocabulary descends from it. This week, as we endured the agonizing wait to know who won the election, two words from that past kept coming to my mind: bellwether and tenterhooks. A bellwether is an indicator of what's going to come in the future. We use the term a lot in election years. When I was a boy, the saying went, "As Maine goes, so goes the nation." Maine was considered a bellwether state. I knew it was a metaphor of sorts, but the picture in my mind when I heard it was spelled bell, weather, W-E-A-T-H-E-R. I saw a bell swinging in the wind, sort of like a weather vane, that could somehow tell us the direction things were going in. Once we had the farm and a flock of sheep, my erudite late partner Peter explained to me that the term in fact describes the wether, W-E-T-H-E-R, or castrated male sheep, who wore a bell and led the flock. Our wether Orhan essentially served in that capacity for over 12 years. Orhan was one of the first two ram lambs born on the farm. His mother, who produced insufficient milk for both of her twins, favored Orhan's brother, and we had to supplement Orhan's milk with the bottle, so he bonded with us. We eventually sold Orhan's twin, sexually intact, as a breeder, but Orhan, who like the vast majority of ram lambs on the farm was neutered, became like a pet. His dual affections for the flock and us were useful to us. If we wanted the flock to come, we just had to attract Orhan, and the rest would follow. Explaining what a wether is, introducing Orhan, and then giving the derivation of the term bellwether became staples of my guided tours for guests of the farm. While we owe the term bellwether to sheep, we owe the term tenterhooks to processing their wool. Traditionally, after woolen garments were made and washed, they were stretched tight on wooden frames, held in place by a series of hooked nails to prevent the fabric from shrinking as it dried. The stretching frames are called tenters, from a Latin root meaning to stretch, and the hooked nails are thus tenterhooks. The process itself goes back to the 14th century. The first use of the term on tenterhooks, meaning to be in a state of painful anxiety, is recorded in literature in 1748. I think it would be fair to say that many of you, like me, were on tenterhooks all week as we contemplated our latest bellwethers, especially Pennsylvania, for signs of which way the presidential election would go. So much so that the two words, bellwether and tenterhook, kept colliding in my mind, with the mashup, the image of a bellwether on tenterhooks, bringing a particularly horrific and agonizing vision to mind. And maybe it was appropriately horrific given the stress we all felt in the long wait. The image of a bellwether on tenterhooks got me thinking about the polar oppositions that we have felt ourselves being stretched between. It's made me question even the nature of a bellwether. When I was younger, whether it was Maine or later Missouri or Ohio that were considered bellwethers, I had the vision that those places were, unlike liberal New York or conservative Alabama, populated by people with ambiguous ideology, like a great sea of Orhans who could be swayed to come in one direction or another. Now I'm perceiving that bellwether states are more like those with somewhat equal numbers of ardent liberals and ardent conservatives, often reflected in the urban and rural divide, and that the swing back and forth is largely the effect of which side provides greater motivation to its members to come out and vote in a given election. The middle of the roaders are there, but there are fewer of them, and polarization is pulling them into different camps. As numerous commentators have noted, the polarization is severe and it's everywhere. The sides see each other in caricature only, defined by their most extreme elements, such that, for example, Joe Biden was painted by the Trump campaign as a communist because he advocates government regulation and intervention to protect public health and welfare. Delegitimizing their adversaries, the partisans justify the use of hardball tactics to defeat the other side at any cost. Take the dynamic that occurred when Republicans refused to consider or confirm Obama-nominated judges, and then Democrats responded by depriving Senate minorities of leverage to filibuster in exceptional circumstances. I commend to you all the lecture I heard on alternative radio by Stephen Levitsky on how polarization can kill democracy, for the dangers of continuing down that road. Not only did they see each other in caricature, the more extreme partisans seemed to be also unable to see any aspect of the world other than through the prism of their politics. Take Attorney General William Barr, who claimed that mandates to wear masks in public to prevent COVID-19 transmission were the greatest restriction on human freedom since slavery. What do you bet Mr. Barr is perfectly fine when governments mandate that people wear clothes in public, infringing on the rights of those who prefer to freely move about naked, simply to protect the sensibilities of people who share his prudish views? Would he even see the irony in his inconsistency? We, like sheep, are herd animals, and living as part of the herd means an inevitable push and pull between collective responsibilities and individual liberties. Where we draw the lines, what liberties we're willing to give up for the collectivity, may depend on many variables, including cultural heritage, tribal allegiances, and other arbitrary factors. Maybe we need to recognize the arbitrariness of our own views and be more willing to engage in a give and take that ends in accommodating each other's very human, weird, and arbitrary preferences, at least where it's feasible. Even as we spent the last 4 days awaiting that ritual and entirely unofficial call by the new news organizations, it became pretty comfortably clear in my mind that Joe Biden would be our next president. A significant part of the country, including many centrists and traditional Republicans, had repudiated the awful, corrupt authoritarianism of the cult of Trump. The Biden-Harris administration is likely to govern from the center because Biden is not, despite the caricatures, a communist. And despite my own policy preferences, I think I'm quite comfortable with that approach. In many ways, it has been 4 years of being stretched to the extremes, like wool on tenterhooks. It will be nice to have the tension relieved and to feel once again that we're all part of the same fabric.
Agriculture is underwritten by Turkana Farms, LLC, a small-scale producer of heritage-bred livestock and a wide array of vegetables and berries on just over 39 acres in Germantown, New York. More information, 518-537-3815.